Is it possible that you can live your dream? Is it necessary that you call forth your team and surround yourself with people that you can learn from and grow from? That you must work on yourself and monitor yourself and train yourself? That you've got to begin to take total responsibility for the outcomes that you want to produce in your life? But let us say together with power and conviction, it's hard. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, living a dream, changing your life, is hard. It's hard when you lose all your money, when you've given it the best that you have, when you have some major setback. It's hard. When a doctor looked at me and said the three horrible words no one wants to hear, you have cancer. It was hard to mobilize my mind and spirit, to listen to tapes and music and read scripture and be around other people and seeking out other prostate cancer conquerors to believe that I could do this. It was hard. Never forget, my son said, "Daddy, are you going to die?" "Why are you asking me that?" "You're not going out much. You're not the bubbly personality that I know you to be. You're not talking much. You're spending a lot of time in the room by yourself, Dad. Are you going to surrender? Are you giving up? Are you going to let that doctor's opinion become your reality? Will my daddy see me graduate?" Yes, son, yes. I'm going to fight. No, I don't think it's my time yet. I'm going to see you graduate, but more than that, I've got some other things that I'm going to do with my life. And I thank you for asking me that. But I must tell you that I'm scared. I'm scared. And I've never been in this situation before. It's been easy for me to talk to people and encourage people when they've had challenges in their lives. But it's me, and I don't feel less than a man in admitting this to you. Yes, I'm scared, and I need some help. Repeat after me, please. Ask for help. Not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. And ask for help, and don't stop until you get it. Yes, see, life is hard, and there are some moments in life when you're going to need some help. You're going to need somebody to speak to you. You're going to need somebody to say something to you. I have a friend of mine, Willie Jolly, who's a motivational speaker. He said a setback is a setup for a comeback. I had to listen to Willie's tapes. I have another friend, Kevin Brace, who's a speaker. He said, "Les, come on, man, you can do this. You can make this happen. You can hit a home run. It's a done deal. You are Les Brown. That cancer's got to get out of your body." I said, "Talk to me, Kevin. Talk to me." That's what I need to hear. I needed to hear those words. I don't care who you are. Many people won't allow themselves to ask for help because of pride. Pride cometh before a fall. Because of ego. Ego means edging God out. No, ask for help. Not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. And ask for help, and don't stop until you get it. I'm here because a lot of people helped me. I'm here because a lot of people believed in me at a time when I was struggling to believe in myself. The other thing is, let us say together, it's worth it. Yeah, see, I think, and write this down, you got to find 5 reasons that will make it worth it for you. 5 reasons. What will make it worth it for you? Mine was, I want to take care of my mother. Mine was, I want to do something with my life. What will make it worth it for you? Mine is, I want to leave a legacy. Mine is, I refuse to die an unlived life. What will make it worth it for you? Repeat after me, please. You got to be hungry. Mr. Washington said, "Mr. Brown, what do you want to do with your life?" I said, "Sir, I want to become a disc jockey." "Is that right?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Mr. Brown, you got to be hungry." He said, "I want you to listen to Paul Harvey. He's the world's greatest communicator. Always find a coach or mentor, someone that's doing what it is you want to do. Watch them. Listen to how he does the rest of the story. Listen to his voice, Mr. Brown. Develop your mind and develop your communication skills, because once you open your mouth, young man, you tell the world who you are. And don't forget, Mr. Brown, you got to be hungry. Take the time to develop yourself." So I started training and working on myself. And then pretty soon I came to him. I said, "Sir, I've been working on myself. I've done the things that you told me to do. I listen to Earl Nightingale all the time and Zig, and I've been reading Dr. Norman Vincent Peale's book, and I'm ready. I practice every day 2 and 3 hours, sir. Is that right?" "Yes, sir." "Very good, Mr. Brown. You got to be hungry." I said, "Why do you continue to say that?" "Sir, people that are hungry are unstoppable, Mr. Brown. People that are hungry, no excuse is acceptable. Go out and face the music, young man. And don't forget, stay hungry and know your vitamin. I went to apply for a job on Miami Beach. Milton Butterball Smith was the program director. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you, sir? My name is Les Brown, sir. I like to be a disc jockey. He said, young man, you having journalism in your background? No, sir, I don't. You have any experience in broadcasting? No, sir, I don't. He said, I'm sorry, we don't have any job for you. I went back and I told Mr. Washington. I was devastated. I said, Mr. Washington. They said, no, they wouldn't even allow me to audition for them, sir. Mr. Brown, don't take it personally. I told you, know your vitamin. Most people are so negative, they have to say no 7 times before they say yes. Be unstoppable, Mr. Brown. You got to be hungry. Go back again. Yes, sir. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you, sir? My name is Les Brown, sir. I like to be a disc jockey. Young man, weren't you here yesterday? Yes, sir, I was. Didn't I tell you no yesterday? Yes, sir, you did. Then why are you back today? Well, sir, I didn't know whether or not somebody was laid off or somebody was fired, sir. Nobody was laid off or fired. Now get on out of here. I came back the next day. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you, sir? My name is Les Brown, sir. I like to be a disc jockey. I know what your name is. Weren't you here the last 2 days? Yes, sir, I was. Didn't I tell you no the last 2 days? Yes, sir, you did. Then why are you back today? Well, sir, I didn't know whether or not someone got sick because someone died, sir. No one got sick or died. No one was laid off or fired. Now, don't you come back here again. I came back the next day talking loud, looking happy like I see you for the first time. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you? He looked at me with rage. He said, go get me some coffee. I said, yes, sir. So I became the errand boy for the disc jockeys. I'd go get their lunch and their dinner, and I'd stand in the control room, memorizing their hand movements on the control board and all the instruments, learning everything that I could because I expected to be behind that microphone. Then one day, it was a Saturday afternoon, and a disc jockey by the name of Rockin' Roger was drinking while he was on the air. Rockin' Roger got so drunk, he started slurring his words. He was about to fall off the chair. He obviously could not complete his program. And there I was, looking at him through the control room window. A Saturday afternoon, I was the only one there, young, ready, and hungry, walking back and forth saying, drink, rock, drink. Drink, rock. I'd go and get him some more if he'd asked me to. Then pretty soon the phone rang. It was the general manager, and I answered the phone. I said, hello? He said, young boy, this is Mr. Klein. I said, I know. He said, Rock can't finish his program. I said, I know. He said, would you call one of the other DJs in? I said, yes, sir. I hung the phone up. I said, you must think I'm crazy. I called my mom and my girlfriend, Cassandra, and said, y'all come out on the front porch and turn up the radio. I'm about to come on air. I waited for about 20 minutes, and I called him back. I said, Mr. Klein, I can't find nobody. He said, young boy, you know how to work the controls? I said, yes, sir. He said, go in there and segue the records, but don't say nothing here. I said, yes, sir. I couldn't wait to get old Rock out of the way. I put on a fast record. I said, look out, this is me, LB, Triple P, Les Brown, your platter playing papa. There were none before me, and there will be none after me. Therefore, that makes me the one and only. Young and single and love to mingle, certified, bona fide, doubly qualified to bring you satisfaction and a whole lot of action. Look out, baby, I'm your love man. I was hungry.
Everybody can transform a kind of inconvenience in a huge advantage.
Without any question, and it takes work. Now, there's no question that there are certain situations and structures around the world that don't allow people to dream. You know, I'm doing some work in South Africa right now, Johannesburg, and my first step is to help people to learn how to dream, because they were under apartheid, a form of enslavement that did not make dreaming possible. And there are other places around the world that just like that right now. That's destroying people's dreams. And I think that's why we see such global upheaval in terms of many dictatorships, because people are becoming more enlightened. In 2007, Time magazine recognized the computer of the person of the year. And the reason it did, because it gives everyday people access to information that they never had before. And so now people, with that access of information, becoming more enlightened, and it's causing a great deal of disturbance with various types of governments around the world.
It's huge. My message in France, and I would like to spread that everywhere, it's you have a dream, it's possible, so take an action now. How can I help people to believe it's possible?
It's an ongoing process. The faith comes by hearing and hearing and hearing. That's what my favorite book says. That you have to be an unreasonable person who's not looking at and judging the circumstances such as you see them.
Yeah.
But you're calling forth those things that be not as though they were. And if you read the book called Change or Die by David Dushman,
I will do.
he said there's a person who is an unreasonable person who brings a message that it's possible and repeat that message. And there are people who hear that message who are able to relate to it and identify with it. And then they begin to move from and develop a whole approach to life with that new level of enlightenment. That as he speaks or she speaks, it begin to give people a vision of themselves beyond their circumstances and their mental conditioning, and challenging them to begin to embrace some habits that cause them to make some new choices that will help them to carve out and become the architect of their future, as opposed to becoming volunteer victims.
Great. You do a lot of speeches all around the world, and you are not the only speaker. A lot of speakers. So, according to you,
I'm a trainer. I'm known as a speaker, but my gifting is I started out as a trainer, teaching people how to live their dreams, teaching them how to use their voice and their story and leverage their knowledge to go from being local to being global. That's what my gifting is in.
So as a trainer, why there are some speaker or trainer who give only a kind of information, at the end you say, oh, it's interesting, and other speakers like you, according to me, and you feel something and you're not thinking about, oh, it's interesting, but I can do that. I want to take an action. I want to change something in my life. I don't know if it was interesting, but I will change something in my life. What are the differences?
Well, there are many speakers think that people are stuck because of lack of information. I always say, if information could change people, everybody would be skinny, rich, and happy. They don't need us to come in and speak. They can go online, they can Google the information. So information alone cannot create transformation. That in order to change human behavior, you have to create a significant emotional event. The materials that I provide, the training that I provide, is designed to impact a person's mind, their heart, and their spirit. And so the goal is to distract, dispute, and inspire, to interrupt their story. How people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. So when I'm training speakers, I teach them how to become a strategic, experiential storyteller. Be strategic on how they use their story. You never make a point without a story, and you never tell a story without a point. And experiential, because Oliver Wendell Holmes said that once a man or woman's mind has been expanded with an idea, concept, or experience, it could never be satisfied to going back to where it was. And so when you take that approach to change how they think and what they feel, then you now have positioned yourself to begin to create a thirst. There's no saying you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. You create a thirst where they want to drink, where they want to change. And now you have, because of their encounter with you, you have now allowed yourself to be an instrument, as Mother Teresa would say, in the hand of God. And now that person will begin to write a new chapter with their lives. So it's about how do we change the story that people believe about themselves that's been given to them by life, given to them by their circumstances. We learn between ages 0 and 5 what's available for us and what's not available for us. And based upon those experiences and the people around us in our environment, a word formulates in our mind. It's either yes or it's no. A word formulates in our heart. It's either yes or no. It formulates in our spirit, yes or no. And there's various things that can impact the formulation of that word and the conviction behind it and how we move our lives forward.
Yeah.
My goal, if the word is no, is to interrupt that word and to change it to a very affirmative yes.
It's great. I love that. How to have a strong will? Because a lot of speakers are speaking about you have to have will, but how?
Will is, that's why I talk about the mind, the heart, and the spirit.
Yeah.
The reason we celebrate Nelson Mandela
I love
is
it.
that for 26 years, they tried to control his mind, they were able to control his body.
Yeah.
But most importantly, they couldn't break his spirit. And so that deep down resolve,
Yeah.
that dimension that's available to all of us was explained to us in the book called Man's Search for Meaning, that Viktor Frankl, that there's a part of us that's always a part of us that's in our hands, that the irreducible essence of who you are, that either you say yes or no, not based upon the circumstances, not based upon the pressure that's applied, but based upon your conviction. Are you going to give this the power to take advantage of you? Are you going to turn yourself over to this? We always have that choice. That's the greatest choice that human beings have. Am I going to give myself a pass to surrender, or am I going to stand up? I remember telling a story when I produced my first PBS special on public television of a man who came by a house and there were people on the porch talking, and there was a dog moaning and groaning. The guy was curious, and he went back and he asked the owner, "Why is this dog moaning and groaning?" And the owner said, "Because he's lying on a nail."
Yeah.
The guy said, "Well, why won't he just get off?" He said, "Because it's not hurting bad enough for him to get off. It's just hurting bad enough for him to moan and groan." And so what most people do in life, they have the power to change their circumstances. You are made in the likeness and image of God. You've been given authority and dominion over everything on the face of the earth. But most people rather moan and groan about their situation, show up in their lives as volunteer victims, rather than become actively engaged in doing the work necessary to change their circumstances. It's been said there are two types of people, those who work and those who watch them. So you got to be willing to do your internal work so that you have a mental resiliency, and your external work finds something that you want to master that will allow you to move yourself forward.
Wow. So we have to, the first step is to find what we want to master.
Why are you here? What's your reason for being? Why do you get up in the morning? Most people don't have a clue. Pay the bills, keep a roof over your head. I think we have to reflect on, who am I? Why am I here? What drives me? If I died today, what 3 words would I want said about me if I died today? You know, what is it that defines me? You know, and how do I define myself? Most people allow their circumstances to define them, as opposed to defining themselves and how they're going to show up in life. And so my mission is to help people to connect with the power they have within, their greatness. When you're pursuing your greatness, you don't know what your limits are, so you act like you don't have any. And when you live from that place, you can now be able to make a greater contribution and make a greater impact with your life, because of the fact that you see yourself in a larger context. One of the principles, there are 9 principles that we teach of greatness. And the first one is, each of us can achieve far beyond our horizons and in avenues of life we have never explored. But most people settle in and accept things in life as it has been given to them, as opposed to rising above that, working to create something that they can feel good about.
It's the first person principle.
Yes.
What are the next?
The next one is, we must take responsibility for our actions and our reactions. When you look at your circumstances, you know, George Bernard Shaw said, the people look for the things that they want in life, and if they can't find them, they create them. And so when we look at ourselves, it's about doing that. It's about taking ownership for your stuff, for your life. And one of the things I emphasize, that changing is not easy, that changing your life changing habits, reinventing yourself,
Yeah.
picking yourself up after life has knocked you flat on your back. I've got to say, when life knocked you down, try and land on your back, because if you can look up, you could get up. Well, that sounds cute, but that's not easy. When I was diagnosed with prostate cancer 17 years ago, that first time that happened, I said, hey, I can handle this. Then when it came back a year later, last year, 17 years later, and this time it had metastasized to 7 areas of my body and ate 40% of my T1 vertebrae. Now the stakes are higher. It's just life saying, okay, Mr. Motivator, you beat cancer the first time. What you gonna do now? I started laughing. When the doctor told me, he said, why are you laughing? Are you in denial? I said, no. I said, I feel like Mother Teresa. He said, what do you mean? She said, Lord, I know you know how much I can bear. I just wish you to have so much confidence in me. I said, the stakes are higher. So I've got to dig in and got to fight more, because at the end of the day, life is a fight for territory. And once you stop fighting for what you want, what you don't want will automatically take over. And so it's a fight, it's a challenge in life every day. And what we have to do is embrace it. What we have to do is see it as a project to be worked on. I read something once that I live by. It said, in life, you will always be faced with a series of God-ordained opportunities, brilliantly disguised as problems and challenges. And so I see even cancer as a gift, as a God-ordained opportunity.
It is a kind of test for you to improve
It's a
yourself.
test, right? No test, no testimony. Yes.
Wow.
And so you have to be willing to step up and handle it. Anybody can have faith, David. If the bills are paid, if they have their health, the marriage is working out fine, the children acting like they have good sense, they have a lot of money in the bank, a lot
Everything
of
is perfect.
investment. Anybody can have faith under those circumstances. The true challenge of faith is when life knocks on the door. The true challenge when you lose your health, or something happens to someone you care about, or you lose your wealth, or some tragedy happens to you. All of us over the next year will experience at least 3 tragedies. We will experience it personally or someone we care about. Charles Udall said in life, he said, things will happen around you and things will happen to you. But the only things that really count are the things that happen in you. And that's where, that's our domain. That's where we have the control.
Yeah, we choose the answer.
Yes, we did too, and we choose how we're going to respond to this. Will I allow this to get the best of me? Will I allow this to stop me? Am I going to surrender to this? Will I give myself a pass? Will I wimp out on myself? That's always a choice.
I love that. In the speech, just before you said a sentence that I love, can you repeat it about the fact that when it's hard?
If you do what is easy.
Yeah, I love that.
Giving yourself a pass, giving yourself permission to stop. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. I didn't do what I'm doing now for 14 years because it was hard to make the radical change in my approach, my dress, my learning the language of corporate America, gaining access, developing myself an intellectual resource where corporations will reach over people with years of experience, PhDs and MBAs, and I have no experience and no credentials, and be able to compete with them. It was hard, but we can do hard. All of us have moments in our lives when things have been thrust upon us and we had to do hard. So if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And so don't give yourself a pass. Don't run away from hard, because you can do hard. And through that, you discover a part of yourself that you would not know otherwise.
Yeah, you are building your power when you have challenges and when it's hard.
Yes, those things only happen through growth experiences, through challenges. If you go to the gym to work out and you don't feel any discomfort the next day, here's what we know: you haven't done anything. And so you got to challenge yourself. And you're going to get hurt. You know, Viktor Frankl calls it unavoidable suffering. Life is full of pain and disappointment. It's a part of the process.
And we are proud of ourselves when we overcome something.
When we overcome things, we discover things about ourselves. No tests, no testimony. No guts, no glory.
Yeah.
And I was doing a broadcast once, and a guy was coming up, and he had crutches. He was coming up to be interviewed by me, and he missed a step, and he fell. It was a very embarrassing moment. And I went down to help him get up, and he said, "Don't feel sorry for me or be embarrassed." He said, "It goes with being a paraplegic. I fall all the time." And so we fall all the time in life. We make mistakes all the time in life.
Yeah.
You know, there's no life without mistakes. Anything that's worth doing is worth doing badly. It's worth doing right if you know how to do it. But if you don't know how to do it, it's worth doing badly until you get it right. All of us are going to fall on some tough times. 8 out of 10 millionaires have had to file bankruptcy. It's a part of the process. You go up, you go down. And we learn things during the tough times. That's where we really learn things. That's where we begin to discover things about ourselves. Adversity introduces you to yourself, that are part of yourself that you would never know otherwise when things are going real good for you. And so what we have to help people to understand is to maintain a spirit of optimism in spite of their circumstances, to give them hope. Why? Because when there's hope in the future, that gives you power in the present. So my goal is training 100,000 voices of hope who will do 3 things. Help give people hope. That's number 1. Number 2, teach them methods that will help them to develop the desire to reinvent themselves so that they are not replaced by an app or outsourcing, because this is a time where you have to continuously reinvent yourself to stay ahead of technology and cheap labor around the world. That's number 2. Continuing to work on yourself and growing and developing. And the third thing is to build communities, collaborative, achievement-driven cultures, supportive cultures that'll help you to get to the next level. Have a group we call ourselves Cancer Conquerors. And so one goose can fly 75% further in formation with other geese than he could ever fly by himself. So if you got 100,000 voices giving people hope, that's number 1. Number 2, encouraging them to develop their capacity, their skill set. There's no shortage of opportunity. There's a shortage of capacity to take advantage of the opportunities that are available in the global economy.
Yeah.
And encouraging people to create communities of collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships. We can accomplish anything.
And how can the people and me can contribute to these dreams?
They can email me at yes@lesbrown.com. yes@lesbrown.com, and we'll be set up within a few weeks and send them out some information. But also in the meantime, what we will do is send them a video that as they watch this, they'll see the message that I'm bringing and a format. We're going to be teaching them the 7 principles of storytelling so that they can learn how to influence and impact and change lives, one-on-one, small groups, or in large groups.
Yeah. So with 100,000 voices, you can make a big difference in this world.
Absolutely, yes. That's the goal, and we want 100,000 voices outside of politics and outside of religion, both of which polarize and divide people. Just everyday people. I'm not an educated guy. If both my parents came in here right now, I would not know either one of them. I'm adopted. I don't have any credentials. I'm just an average person, and I have a desire to make a difference with my life, to live a life of significance, and to live a meaningful life, and to help others who have a desire to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I want to begin to talk about this amazing book with a quote, direct quote from your book. You said, Dr. Miles Monroe, the great preacher and orator, said, "The wealthiest place on the planet is not in the Far East, where there is oil in the ground. It's not in South Africa, where there are diamond mines. The wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery, for there you will find leaders who have never stepped up, innovators or innovations the world has never been exposed to, talents and potential never realized." I am reminded of another man who said, "Oh God, to reach the point of death only to realize you have never lived, only to realize that you never scraped the surface of your potential. I remember reading about a woman who had just left the doctor's office after having been told she had terminal cancer. She made herself a cup of coffee when she returned home, and as she sipped it, she suddenly filled with anger, with rage, and hurled the cup against the wall and shattered it in many pieces. And as she threw it, she screamed out, "I refuse to die and unlive life." And then ending that section, you said this: the only way that you can break through the atmosphere and reach higher altitudes is by being hungry. Hunger is the most crucial element of creating your greatest life. I love this book because I thought that was a great way of capturing our attention. Why this subject of hunger and using that as an analogy or a metaphor? Why did you choose to use hunger as a metaphor for desire?
If you are casual about your dream, you will end up a casualty with your dreams. That most people unconsciously die long before they're buried because they don't realize that they have been marginalized, that they live in a culture where they're told more about what they cannot do rather than what they can do. We've been programmed to think in terms of being one-dimensional, of being an employee, of going to college, graduating, getting a job, working for 40 years, expecting to retire on 40%, which wasn't enough in the first place. The 40-40 plan is gone. It's been interrupted. And so, but most people are not aware of that. The great anthropologist, Margaret Mead, was in London, and she was having dinner. So one of the waiters said, "You know, there's several Americans here tonight." And so she said to her guest, "Let me show you something." She said, "Let me know when you serve them dessert, and I'll tell you exactly how many are here." He said, "You couldn't possibly." She said, "Just let me know when you serve them dessert." And so when he left, he came back, he said, "Okay, I've served them dessert." She got up and she walked around and she said, "There are 35 Americans in this restaurant." He looked at the roster, he was shocked. He said, "How did you know that?" She said, "In the UK, when you eat a slice of pie or cake, you eat it from the crust toward the tip. In America, when we eat a slice of pie or cake, we eat it from the tip toward the crust." How do you eat a slice of pie?
I eat a slice of pie from the crust to the tip.
Yeah, now, so you're an exception because you came up in a British culture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, but the average American will eat a slice of pie from the tip toward the crust.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no one told us to do that. We just picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, before 1980, you walk around, you would not see people with tattoos. The majority of people that you see today have tattoos. Where'd that come from? How could that happen? What created that? There was no advertising on television saying, go out and get a tattoo. Well, in America, we incarcerate more people than any place else in the world. And in prison, you're not allowed to draw on the walls. You're not allowed to use your artistic skills on the walls of the prison. There's a penalty. You'll be penalized. You'll be put in the hole in solitary confinement. So they're bored. They have nothing else to do. And so they write on each other's bodies. They write tattoos. So now, when you see people today, all on television and commercials, you see tattoos everywhere. Nobody told them to go out and get it. But being in the culture, there's some things that you pick up. And so picking up a limited vision of yourself is natural when you're in a culture that does not recognize your greatness, that does not recognize your humanity, and create a culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self. And so in order to break out of that, to realize that you are made in the likeness and image of God, to realize that you've been given authority and dominion over everything on the face of the earth, that it takes everything in you. People that are hungry are unstoppable. People that are hungry are relentless.
People that are hungry will find a way to win. People that are hungry will not take no for an answer. People that are hungry won't give up. They will persist until they succeed. That's what's required to make it today.
Yes, yes, definitely.
How would you respond when someone's back is up against the wall, they're facing failure time and time again? Let me just share a little quick story. Years ago, I worked with Tony Robbins. In 1999, I was working with Tony Robbins. I thought, model one of the best. It was either you, Stephen Covey, or it was Tony Robbins. And at the time, Mike, I had a little connection into Tony Robbins. So I went with Tony Robbins.
Yes.
And I got so pumped after a year of working there, I gave over 240 presentations. What a great training opportunity as I traveled the country and just was able to present so many times. And finally, he said on stage, talking about living your dreams, he said, "When would now be a good time?" He told the 5,000 people audience. And I remember I nudged my wife and I said, that's my calling, man. I'm making an excuse for myself. It's time for me to go live my dream. Anyway, long story short, I left the Tony Robbins organization. I called my parents. I said, "Mom, Dad, can we and the kids stay at your home for just a couple months as I do my first seminar?" Our home was actually rented out at the time because we were traveling so much, so I couldn't go there. And Mom and Dad said, absolutely. Well, those 2 months turned into 5 years in the basement of their house. And I thought, oh my gosh. And in my darkest moment, my wife says, "You should go get a job." I said, "But I hear Les Brown in me, right? My calling is to do this. There's gotta be a way. I can't just give up on the 10-yard line or whatever." And she said, "Well, what are you gonna do?" And I said, "Honey, I'm gonna go write a book." And she said, "You're gonna do what? Have you even read a book?" Anyway, I said, "I'm gonna go write a book." And we had a car repossessed, so we ended up with one card. And I decided I can't write where the kids are, so I drove down to the grocery store parking lot and I started to type. And 2 months later, If You Think You Can was written, and I'm telling you, it was published about 3 months later. And from then, my world in 2005 turned overnight. That book became an international bestseller back in 2005, and we just came out with the 15th version. It's coming out next week, and so it's just unbelievable. As I have always told audiences, believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, figure out the right strategy, but never give up. I don't know, how do you counsel people to respond to those kinds of challenges without giving up?
Well, first of all, we always have a choice. There's something in us, TJ, as you know, that's greater than anything that we face, even though we have no evidence to point to prove it. Like as I'm speaking to you now,
That's right.
I have to prepare myself mentally because I'm in pain as I speak to you. Cancer has eaten 40% of my T1 vertebrae and metastasized to the T2, to T3, and to the C7. And I just spoke to an audience this morning, and I said, a doctor looked at me and he said 3 words that no one ever wants to hear. He said, "You have cancer." And the audience got quiet. And I said, "Sir, can you give me a second opinion?" He said, "Yes, and you're ugly too."
That's good.
I said, "No, he didn't." I said, I got issues. Here's the thing. Life is a fight for territory. And once you stop fighting for what you are, what you don't want will automatically take over. So I could have said, and even now I can say, this pain is just too great. But my affirmation to myself, whenever I'm going through a tough time, and I'm a 27-year cancer conqueror, no matter how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. And I think that people who make it through the storms of life, and we're always going to have storms. Forrest Gump said life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. My book of life says that Think it not strange that you will face the fiery furnaces of this world. You will, not you might, you will have tribulations. It's called life. And so what's key is to visualize and see yourself on the other side and hold that vision. He said, I'll give you all your eyes can see. Hold that vision and say to yourself, wow, that came out great. I made it through. I learned some things. Every day for 27 years, I've been saying, I thank God I'm cancer free. And people say, wait a minute, you've been saying that for 27 years. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen. I said, no, that's not true. Number one, I'm still here. Mandino say, persist until you succeed. Well, just think, 27 years. Look, when will a baby walk? It will walk when it walks. When will it talk? It will talk when it talks, and some talk sooner than others. And so many times we give up out of frustration and lack of patience. And to me, the people that make it through have a series of perseverance, persistence, and patience. And they show up with that every day until they get the desired results that they want. I know, I don't believe, I know that I'm going to be free of cancer, that this is not unto death. There's something that I have to align myself with because cancer cells gone crazy. And so as I'm working on myself and working on the goals and dreams and other areas of my life that I have not resolved yet, that I'm just persistent and I'll keep coming back again and again and again. And as I told my children, even a broke clock is right twice a day. At some point in time, a brother's going to break through.
That is so awesome. Despite the cancer challenge, if you call it a challenge or not, you're still out.
Because you get to know things about yourself that you don't know.
Yeah, right.
That it introduces you to a part of yourself that you're not familiar with, that it helps you to begin to prioritize things and determine what's important, what's not important. There are things that I would get angry about that I just let pass. For instance, I was coming down the sidewalk yesterday when I arrived here in New Jersey, in Philadelphia, and a guy had his luggage on the sidewalk and he saw me coming. All he had to do was just pull his luggage back so that I can come by. He refused to move it. He's standing there with his wife. And so, which meant that I had to move my luggage and carry it into the streets and then get back on the sidewalk. And so he said, good, I'm glad you did that. And I said, thank you. And I got into the car that was waiting for me, and I said to my friend, I said, you know what? There was a time that I'd have whooped his ass. You know, I wanted to look at him, and one time I'd have said, you about to make me lose my mind. Up in here. I took my stuff on the sidewalk, and that wasn't enough. You wanted to taunt me. You wanted to tease me. You want to act like you punked me out. And I said, but at 74, no, because every emotion, I mean, I laugh a lot. Why? 1 minute of laughter boosts your immune system for over 24 hours. Think about that. 1 minute of laughter boosts your immune system for over 24 hours. So people who are watching us now, after we get through, they will get sick for 20 years. Now, 1 minute of anger weakens your immune system for 4 to 5 hours. Yeah. So I deliberately don't get angry. I choose not. Anger is a wind that blows out the lamp of the mind. I study psychoneuroimmunology. I know that the thoughts that we have, they create gene expressions. I know it creates a certain type of chemistry in our body that's toxic. And so I can't afford, as a cancer conqueror, to get angry. I choose not to go there. And we always have a choice. And I believe that the type of program that you have, it gives people the mental and emotional and psychological and spiritual muscle to have a clarity of mind to stand back and say, you know what? I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to let this get to me. I'm better than this, and rise above it and move on with their lives.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing all that. You said, you put a little nugget in there I like, which I want to draw attention to, which you just said some people give up on their goals because they lack patience. And that made me think of the law of the harvest, which has 3 laws, right? You reap what you sow.
Yes.
Increased returns. You get more than you sow, right? And then the third thing is delayed gratifications. And so sometimes we give up on our goals because we haven't given time for those seeds to nourish and bear fruit, right? We give up a little bit too early. And anyway, any thoughts on that?
Yes, well, there are some things that you're pursuing. I see that we grow from people and from projects. I'll be a better person at the end of this program because of our communication. We grow from people and projects. And so when we have projects, they challenge us. Why? Because we always, if we want to grow and we're serious, choose projects that's beyond our comfort zone. Because in order to do something you've never done, you've got to become someone you've never been.
That's good.
And so there are experiences that you're going to have in the process. Some things will happen to you, and some things will happen for you. And so I believe that those things that happen for us that sometimes we're aware of, but most of the time we're not. That's what psychologists call your scotomas, your blind spots.
Right.
That a lady, she's an intuitive, and she wrote me a note when she found out that I was a 27-year cancer conqueror, and she says, "This is not unto death to you." She said, "Search your heart and find out what's there." And she was one of the people that gave me a book years ago that I read called Who's the Matter with Me? And what I realized, TJ, and this is the first time I ever talked about this publicly, that somewhere in me that I had not consciously recognized, that I had anger at my birth mother and father. How can you bring someone in this world who didn't choose to be here and walk away? And even though we are told, forgetting those things which are behind, reaching forth unto those things which are before, I woke up in the middle of the night, and sometimes you can get a message from a movie.
Right.
And a movie with Tom Cruise, it's called Magnolia. And I never saw the whole movie, but there was a quote that woke me up around 3:15, I never forget. And the quote was, "We might be through with our past, but our past is not through with us." And so I have unresolved stuff in me because for a period of time, I saw myself as have been given away, but there's been a shift in my consciousness. Now I look at my life and I realize I was chosen with love, that God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother. And that's why I know, now that I've come to grips with, now that I had to get some help. And I believe, ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong.
Yes.
And ask for help and don't stop until you get it. And I said, "You said this is not unto death for me. Search my heart." And I said, "Can you help me go there?" And she did, because sometimes somebody can take you to a place within yourself that you can't go by yourself. And in that session, I realized the anger and the hatred that I had for two people that I don't even have faces for. I've never seen my birth mother or birth father. And so I had to resolve that. I had to forgive myself first and then forgive them. And that's when the healing takes place, because cancer, a cell's gone crazy.
Yeah.
And so now, as I move to a place of love, God is love, and he who dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in them. As I move to a place of love for them, that now I'm in harmony and in integrity with who I am as a person, and I have forgiven myself, I've forgiven them, and I'm living this mission of making the world a better place than how I found it, of being a source of light and hope and inspiration for people.
And you're doing an awesome job. There is no long-term benefit for being a grudge holder, holding resentment toward people. I always tell people say, "Well, do things bug you?" Well, things bug me, but listen,
Yeah.
I don't live there. And I always tell people, I let things roll off my back. You can criticize me all day long. And you know what? I'm not going to internalize that.
Yes.
Right? Because I know who I am and I'm thankful for who I am. Anyway.
Yes. And that is real, because the stuff we take on is they said hating someone is like drinking poison and say, okay, now you're going to die. No, it's not going to happen like that. Yes, no. We all need coaching on how to let some things go. One of the things that I teach is let go or be dragged. That there are certain things that you know that you need to let go of. Otherwise, it's going to compromise your power and it's going to drag you down. And it takes time to do that.
It does. It does. So in your book, I remember this story.
Yes.
Such a great book. Anyway, you walked in, I think it was to a junior high or an elementary school, and you said, "There's greatness in this room. If you're here, would you please stand?"
Yes.
And you had to say it over and over. And then one young person, didn't they stand up and they said, "Here I am.
Here I am." And that young man, I'm working with him today.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, he's been with me since that time. He is an attorney, and he also worked with youth. We go to prisons and juvenile detention centers together. Yes, and he's truly manifesting his greatness. And I'm proud to say I'm one of his mentees, because it's a seesaw relationship. At first, I started out being his mentor, but he has incredible skills with the millennials and with technology that I don't have.
Oh.
And so he's teaching me how to connect with them and how to use technology to further the work that I have, that I'm doing, and to create non-performance income. So this thing called life, I believe that you're never too old to learn and you're never too young to teach. And he's teaching me, and I'm proud of it.
That's awesome.